Hi Sapna, welcome to NEXWEB podcast.
Hi, Srishti. Thank you for having me.
Sapna, I chose you for NEXWEB podcast because you are early childhood and primary school teacher in Australia, which is a fantastic job. But what motivated you to become an early childhood and primary school teacher in Australia?
Thank you for asking that, Srishti. Let me talk about my educational qualifications first. So I first did my bachelor's in science, major in zoology back home in Nepal, and I worked as a primary and lower secondary science and math teacher in Nepal for 4 years. And let me tell you, I enjoyed every single day. However, given the fact that teaching is a challenging profession, but I absolutely enjoyed it. So before I decided to move to Australia, um, I was actually willing to become a teacher in Australia, but nonetheless, I didn't realize that it's going to be quite difficult and challenging. So when I first made my move to Australia in 2018, I did my master's in animal science, which was an 18 months course. And soon after that, I did my grad certificate in sustainable agriculture, which was a relevant course. However, I did not feel satisfied within because somewhere deep inside, I just wanted to become a teacher and I just didn't know how, but I just wanted to. And I tried becoming a tutor first because I realized that it was quite easy to become a tutor if you have a previous experience or a relevant education qualification. But then I also realized that you need to have that teaching degree in Australia to become a teacher because you need to be a registered teacher to be able to teach in Australia. And yes, so this is how I wanted to become a teacher in Australia.
Sapna, how long you have been working as an early childhood and primary school teacher in Australia?
Thank you for asking the Srishti. So I've been working as an early childhood teacher and a primary school teacher for about a year in Australia, I would say. So my journey is um, extraordinary for myself, I would say so, because I started working as an early childhood teacher, so namely ECT, when I was actually studying my master's in teaching. So like how we have to do placements in Australia, and I think it's all over the world that you have to do placements in order to be able to be qualified in that stream. So when I first did my first placement, and eventually I did my second placement in a childcare center, and I think it was the second week of my placement, and all of a sudden I was offered as a an early childhood teacher position. I was quite surprised because I was still doing my placement and I was still doing my course. But having said that, like I would never say no to an opportunity that was knocking my door, like literally. So I decided to give it a go. However, it was really challenging as an international student because you have to study full time and then working part time and balancing that education, and work was kind of juggling in between. However, it worked out really well eventually. And as a primary school teacher, I actually had to finish my course and I got to be an Australian primary school teacher while I was doing my final prac. So your final prac is of like around 6 weeks, so which is basically 30 days. So you have to do your final prac for 30 days, and then all of your paperwork and everything gets assessed before you can get a full registration to become a teacher. So I was quite privileged to get this opportunity ahead of my placement. So I would say I completed my last term as a classroom teacher, and this is our final term in our school.
Wow. Sapna, you have mentioned that you have been working as a primary school teacher in your home country, Nepal, which is a developing country, and now you are a primary school teacher of Australia, which is a developed country. But personally, what sort of differences have you found being an educator of developing country and a developed country?
Well, personally, I figured that there's a lots and lots of differences. I would say one of the major difference is the culture. Um, it would sound funny, but I had a huge cultural shock when I first started working as a teacher in Australia because like I was used to being a teacher in Nepal, and all those routines and regulations and those culture, those norms that we follow in Nepal. Cut to being a teacher in Australia, it was a major challenge, and it was a huge shock to start with. However, when you slowly understand the Australian policy, the curriculum, the way of teaching and learning, I think it all made sense eventually. And I feel fortunate to have had that experience in Nepal. Otherwise, I don't feel I would have been this confident the way I am today.
Sapna, like I have heard that mostly in the developing country, like students are taught theoretically, but in developed country, students are taught practically. Like, have you found such sort of differences in the education system?
A lot actually. As you mentioned that there's more of theoretical knowledge emphasis in our country, but I think it's slowly, gradually developing, and it's people are changing their thoughts about it and ideas. But when I first started in Australia, I saw the major focus is on play-based pedagogy. As I mentioned that I worked as an ECT for 6 months in a childcare center while I was doing my placement, and that's how I got offered. So I realized we do not prioritize learning ABCD, like alphabets or numbers straight away. What we try to develop in a child is a child has to be, a child has to be emotionally safe, sound. A child has to feel safe, be able to express your emotions and all of that. So it's more about social and emotional learning first, and then there is the curriculum learning. So that's, I think, one of the big differences that I found in Australia.
Sapna, like I believe that being a primary school teacher, like primary school students do lots of fun, and you have to deal with those funny things. Like, can you share one of the funny incident that happened in your classroom while you were at job?
Well, I have to dig deep into that. I think there's a lot, because as a teacher there are many moments like you'll come across that'll make you laugh. Sometimes you have to control that laughter as a teacher, because students idolize you. But
Yeah.
having said that, I think, yeah, when I first started, so I was in this class as a guest teacher.
Mm.
So it's not my class. So
Mm.
I was in a different, I was in a different class, and I was, I think, observing that class,
Mm.
and they were doing some read writing, and I can
Mm.
elaborate that later what a read writing program is. Um, so one of the students, as soon as I entered the class, one of the students goes like, "Miss Sapana, your makeup looks really good," and I just cracked at the very moment. I was like, how how they can notice like each and every single thing of yours. Yeah, so that was really funny moment for me.
I have
They
a
all,
daughter who is 4.5 years old, and I like
yeah,
from 3 years old, I had to like push her to go to the toilet like every 1 hour so that she didn't have
yeah.
an accident. And what she said that like one day, like what she said like, "Mommy, you have like you. Why do you force me to go to the toilet?" And I say explain her that I don't want an accident from you. I want you to be independent, so you need to go to the toilet. And she said like, yeah, my dad like if he holds the pool, the doctor takes him and do an operation to take out the pee. like like
Oh,
children have a like different
that's
mindset.
hilarious. Yes.
Yeah,
Ah,
like I believe that
like
you
we have to.
listen this a lot.
Yep, yep, a lot, a lot. Yeah. But I think that's part of being a teacher and having that relationship with each other.
Hmm.
Because I've also learned that, like in developing countries, what we prioritize is just teaching and learning
Yeah.
and teaching and learning. But here we prioritize building those relationships first.
Mm.
Because we understand that if a child is not feeling safe and secure and comfortable sharing his or her anxieties, or, like there may be questions or dilemmas that may need scaffolding. So then and there, that relationship works. And I'm
Yeah.
saying this out of my experience, Srishti. Yeah,
Sometimes, as a human, like every day is not a fun day. Sometimes you go to the school and there might be the funny activity, but because of your own issue of emotion, like you don't feel fun in that activity. It's a human nature. Like every day is not a fun day.
definitely.
But how do you self-regulate your emotions and how do you become calm, patience, and crack some funny jokes in front of your students? like in such situations?
Yeah. Thanks for asking that, Shrishti. Well, as you mentioned that no one is perfect,
Yeah.
and I wouldn't be wrong if I say so. I'm not perfect at all. I'm not the best teacher, but I can be the good listener. And that's where I start to become a good teacher. Because if you listen to your students'
Mm.
needs and wants and their worries, and I think you can build that relationship leading to teaching and learning, and it
Mm.
makes it fruitful. Um, However, if I talk about myself, as a teacher, we teach about growth mindset. I'm not sure if you've heard of this term, growth mindset. Um, we differentiate growth mindset with the fixed mindset, and we try to teach them. But in the long run, I've realized as a teacher, I need to be mindful of my own mindset before I can teach my children about the mindset, a growth
Mm.
mindset in particular. Um, yes, there will be incidents in your classroom where you will feel like, oh, what I'm going to do. I can't handle this. I can't handle this situation. But like there are tools or techniques that you can try, like calming yourself down, taking yourself away from that situation. Or there are multiple tools that you can try as a human being, not just as a teacher. And I would like to show you something, what we do normally in our school. So we have these zones of regulation. I'm not sure
Mm.
if we're able to see this.
Yeah, I
So
can
we
see it.
talk
Yeah.
about zones of regulation. Yeah, we talk about the zones of regulation each and every single day. So we check in with all the students, starting from the teacher. How am I feeling at that particular moment? So we start with a beautiful math circle in the classroom early in the morning, and then we talk about how we are feeling that day. Because like you might not have a good day, or you might not had a good night or a good sleep, like regardless of whatever the reasons. So we talk about these emotions, like if you say you are in a blue zone, then which means like you are tired, you're sick, you're nervous or sad, and then calm zone, the green zone means you are happy, calm, focused, and ready to learn. And yellow means you're excited or worried. And red zone is the danger zone, as we can see, because this zone meaning you are angry, annoyed, aggressive, mad, or upset. So we figure out all these emotions within ourselves first, because if we cannot regulate your own emotion as a teacher, we are not able to help our children. And then we have different tools to try to regulate all these emotions that we teach on a regular basis. And for me personally, I just take long, deep breaths and I say one day at a time.
Like Swapna, yesterday I was talking with a primary school teacher of US, and she said me like when I am feeling sad, like 1 month ago she lost her mother and she was feeling so sad, like she took a mental health break for 1 week, and then she had to join the job, and she told like to her students that I am feeling mental health breakdown because I lost my mother, and she just shared her emotion, and she told me like after sharing the emotion in front of students also understand her situation, and there was like a
Absolutely.
lots of flexibility between the students and the teacher, like do you do like that, do you share emotion according to their mindset in front of
I do
students?
sometimes, yes, whenever it's needed. So I'm basically teaching year 3 and 4 students. So they are 8 to 9 years old. Um, if you talk about their age group, I do definitely, and I think we all go through these emotions. As I mentioned, that we go through this blue and green and yellow and red zone, and not necessarily you will just go through one emotion. You can go through various emotions in one single day.
Hmm.
And what I personally believe is I do not prioritize that I should be in a green zone all the time, or my students have to be in the green zone all the time, because it's not natural. Just for example, I'm annoyed. I lost my favorite pair of shoes, and then I am really, really upset. So I'm in the red zone. And if someone comes and tries to calm me down, I may not be able to calm down at that particular moment. So what is the tool that I try to need is to isolate myself, give myself time and space, or I should be able to find someone that I'm comfortable sharing with. And yes, as you mentioned, having that bond with students as a student teacher is really, really important in order to share our emotions, whatever we go through in an entire day. And I would also like to mention the Australian education system is different in the sense that you know how we used to have like 7 or 8 different subjects in Nepal, and there used to be one different teacher to teach particular subject.
Yeah.
Here in Australia, we do have special um, classes like we learn Indonesians, we have health and PE, which is physical education, we have tech, design and technology, but my students are spending most of their time with me. So I am responsible to teach them literacy, numeracy, HAS, which is humanities and social sciences, and arts and craft and science. So I am responsible to teach them 5 different subjects. So they are basically spending most of their day with me.
Wow, that's the interesting part. Swapna, like, what suggestion you want to give to those people who want to become a primary school teacher in Australia, like for migrants and for Australian citizens? What sort of preparation a person should do?
Okay, I would personally like to see as many overseas students becoming and flourishing in this industry, because I think I lacked a friend when I was doing this degree. So I could not find any friend from my country. But having said that, it's not necessarily that you need to have a friend from your home country, but I think it makes the journey convenient and easier, and nicer, I would say. But my suggestion would be, I think there may be lots of suggestions I would like to give, starting from English. So we should be mindful of the fact that we are in Australian land where all the students speak, communicate, in English. So you should be able to be fluent in English to be able to teach them and learn and unlearn so many things. So yes, so English is the first major thing that you will need to be good at. And it's not rocket science. You can always practice. There are so many different mediums to every day improve your English, your grammar, your pronunciation. And the other factor is confidence. Like confidence is the key. So if I were not confident, Srishti, I don't think I would be even, like interviewing with you right now. So confidence is the key, because as a teacher, you need to have those people skills. You need to have that mass confidence, because you will be standing in front of a mass. So mass is your student. So you will be standing in front of your students and you will be delivering that lesson. And then having said that, it's not only about the lesson, it's about your connection with them, how well you connect with your students. So, like there are lots and lots of things that you need to be aware before you decide to become a teacher in Australia. There will be challenges. I've seen some of my friends, I won't take names, trying to give up because they felt like it's not going anywhere for them, or they felt like they are not being heard. So, and I think in this journey, it's a 2 years journey, and then you have to go through 4 different placements in different schools, dealing with different students, and if I talk about Darwin, in Darwin, the majority of the students are Aboriginal and Torres Islander students. That means they have a different culture. They have a different background. Now, as a teacher, you will be needing to understand their culture, their background, and make a connection with them before you can teach them. So, like, as I said, like, making connection is, I think, the utmost of all. For the admission process, you would need to acquire, I think, 7788 in IELTS. And I would also like to mention that the this teaching course only accepts IELTS for some reason. I think it's also because IELTS is basically like having that one-on-one conversation with an actual human being, or it could be any other reasons, but which I'm not sure about. But having said that, yes, you need to secure 7, 7, and 8, 8, and I'm assuming 7 in writing, 7 in speaking, and 8 in listening.
Did you have to do IELTS because like you did 4 years course in Australia? Like, did you like skip the IELTS? Like, what was your process?
Right. So I think I started my process when I was in Sydney. When I first contacted my educational agent, the agent said that I might have to do IELTS, given the fact that I did not do, like a complete 2 years to begin with. So I did an 18
Yeah.
months and then I did another 6 month course. So I was just skeptical if I had to do IELTS. But then later I found out from the university that I did not have to because I meet that requirement. I've already studied 2 years in Australia. So hence I did not have to do my IELTS in order to get into this course, which is Master of Early Childhood and Primary Teaching. Um, but in the later stage, as I mentioned, Srishti, you go through all those 4 placements. After you finish your final placement, you have to register yourself as a teacher to the TRB, which is the Territory Registration Board. That means they go through all your documents and see whether you are eligible to become a teacher in Australia or not. Once you are given that validation, and then only you can start teaching in Australia.
Then you have to give the IELTS again. Like, despite the fact that you have studied 4 years in Australia and you are teaching in the school, like you are teaching in the English language, but you have to give the IELTS to prove that you are capable of teaching. Like, is it the true fact?
I think, Srishti, I think it depends. So if you have done, for example, you have done a bachelor course,
Yeah.
which was of 4 years.
Yeah.
So you've done a 4 years full course in Australia. I think you don't have to do the IELTS. But having
Okay.
said that, the AITSL does not accept short courses. So if you have done a grad certificate, like or a 6 month short courses, then the AITSL, who assesses all your skills in the related field, I don't think they accept that. And that has happened a case with me. So it's kind of ridiculous that I've already become a teacher in Australia, but having said that, I still have to do my IELTS just to prove the authorities that I can teach. Yeah.
Like, was you aware of this situation like before, or like was you aware before?
I was actually quite relaxed, thinking that I've done 4 years of studying in Australia overall.
Yeah.
So, and also my migration agent told me that I don't necessarily have to do an IELTS again unless I want to get those extra 20 points for PR purposes. So PR is far away because you need to do your skill assessment first in order to do your PR. And I'm aiming for A1 at 9, Srishti. So, but I've just got an information that the AITSL does not accept the short courses qualifications. Um, yeah, so that is the reason I have to do my IELTS and I have to get 7.7 and 8.8 in order to get my skills assessed. And after that, I don't think you have to do the IELTS again. Yeah, because that
Yeah.
IELTS will be valid for another 3 years for migration purposes.
Like, I have heard that early childhood and primary school, secondary school teacher is a highly demanded profession in Australia, and it's easy to get a permanent residency from this pathway. Like, how is it in Darwin? Like, is it a easy pathway? Like, have you heard anything about the pathway process?
Somewhat, yes. However, I'm not so confident with the various informations, like there have been legislative changes recently. So I wouldn't say I'm like up to date, but whatever I've heard, like I've had some colleagues who've been in the same teaching journey and they have received their 1 at 9 in about 4 months of time. So which is not bad. Yes, they had to do the IELTS and everything, regardless of the fact that they've already started teaching. I think it's one of those criteria that you have to fulfill as an overseas student. So yes, there will be pros and cons being an outsider um, in Australia. I hope I have answered your question.
Where do you see yourself after 5 years? Like, you will be working as a primary school teacher, or you are thinking to change the profession? Like, what's your plan?
That's a beautiful and a deep question, Srishti. Well, in the next 5 years, yes, because I remember I was asked the same question when I was doing my IELTS speaking test 5 years ago, and I said like, I would like to see myself as a successful, teacher in Australia, which I am
Yeah.
today, and I feel proud of my profession that I'm in. But having said that, now when I've already achieved what I wanted 5 years ago, Now I aspire to become a university lecturer. And not many know this, and I think you are probably one of those few people I'm sharing this with. So my plan in the next 5 years is to do a PhD and become a university lecturer. And if you ask why, and I think I've been fascinated of the fact that how much research it goes into to become a lecturer. So a university lecturer is someone who can teach you to become a teacher. And a teacher is someone
Yeah.
who can teach you the curriculum. So there is a little bit of differences, but overall it is teaching and learning process. Yeah, but yeah, having said that, yeah, I would like to see myself as a university lecturer in the next 5 years. Fingers crossed.
Wow, like that's so interesting. Yeah, I want to see you as a lecturer in next 5 years, and
Thank you,
I want to
Srishti.
know like the process of your PhD, like what sort of process you will be going through because I'm not unaware, and I know it's like a little bit a challenging process. But if there is a passion, anything is
Yeah.
possible.
A lot of
Thank you
people
so
have
much.
mental breakdowns. Yeah.
Yeah, like I have like lots of friends who is studying PhD and they have been paid like per week by the government.
Oh,
Like they
wow.
have been for scholarship, but yeah, but like they say me like this money is not enough for survival, and I have to study a lot, and the financial stress is coming on my head, which is not balancing my financial and education background, which is
Yeah.
quite frustrating. Uh,
Yeah, this is
but
why I mentioned that I
I
want to have that industry experience for the next 5 years before I can actually
yeah.
delve into PhD because I'm also unaware of the fact that how it's gonna be. But yeah, and that's a
Yeah.
requirement to, enter into university. So yeah, let's hope for the best.
Oh, you need to like work in the. You need to start like work for 5 years.
You don't necessarily have to, but what happens is, Srishti, because if I want to do PhD straight away, I don't have the industry
Yeah.
experience. If I don't have the industry
Oh,
experience, I do not know which path I want to take or which, like what kind of researches I want to do. So because there are lots and lots of things in teaching field, so you can talk about rewriting phonics, you can talk about maths learning, and then what best strategy you can use. So in order to be able to dive into that field, you need to be prepared yourself. What do you want to research about? Like you need to have that mind map. So this is my personal opinion. So I want to have that
yeah.
industry experience first, and I've just
Yeah.
started, so no rush.
Yeah.
So because I worked in an early childhood and I also worked in a primary sector, so I kind of have figured out the differences in all those streams, and eventually I'll figure out, yeah, which stream I would like to research more about. Yeah,
Swapna, it was great talking with you. Thank you for attending the Next Week podcast. And I hope you
likewise.
will be doing a PhD. And I want to know the process, like what sort of process you will be going through. And I want to know
Absolutely.
more and more about the Australian education system with you because my child is also going to primary school from next February 2024. So, like, I don't have the knowledge because I am also from overseas and I don't know about the education system of Australia. But with your guidance, I'll get some sort of knowledge and I can handle my own little girl during her school process.
Definitely,
Thank you so much
definitely.
for yeah, thank you so much for attending the next podcast. It was great talking with you, Swapna.
Thank you so much, Srishti. Thank you for your time.